Hi, friends. Welcome to Oracle Aura, a space to absorb information for your soul's vibration. My name is Jada Christina, and I will be your host today. So, today, my friend Ari Grant will be joining us to talk about this beautiful concept that we've really poured our hearts into called coming home. Ari, like me, is also a soul coach, and she is also a friend of mine from New Zealand. She is such a beautiful soul, and she's on a mission to help people align with their authenticity so they can live a life that feels authentic to them. So, Ari and I have combined our gifts and our knowledge and our wisdom to bring you guys coming home. So, if you are a person who feels stressed out more than you feel calm, or you find yourself looking for things outside of you for answers, this is for you. This really truly is for you. This concept of coming home is all about finding the peace within yourself and connecting with that feeling of being at home within yourself. I've got some really exciting news for you guys later on in the episode, so stay tuned and enjoy. Hi, Ari. Welcome.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. I'm really good. How are you?
Good.
Mhm.
So, today is going to be part one of our Coming Home series, which I'm really, really excited about. And I think it would be a great place to start for us to just kind of touch on the idea of coming home and what we mean when we say coming home. So, what does coming home mean to you?
Coming home means before I kind of grasped this concept myself, coming home I felt meant me finding situations or places in the world that felt like home. Being around certain people helped me feel like home. And then I realized, as those things sort of um, gently sort of go out of your life and things come and go, I realized that home can't be something external to you. It needs to be found within. And kind of grasping that concept took a little bit of time. But for me now, what I understand it to be is a place that I can go anytime, anywhere, where I can tap into source. And source for me is God. And it's a place where I feel at peace, and a place where I can go and surrender any of my fears or worries. It's a place where even when I'm happy, I can be grateful and thankful. Um, and there are different, I guess, when I take myself into nature or I take myself into certain spaces, that does help me to connect more to that inner peace and that place of home. But really,
Mm,
it's that inner contentment and that inner peace of just being okay with being with you, and even just being okay with sitting in silence and allowing yourself to think and to process and all of those things, and doing that without judgment. But it's something I feel that takes a bit of practice, coming to that place of home. And I guess the way that you get there kind of evolves in time as well. So
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I love that.
Mm.
Oh, yes. Whenever I think about also like all the ways that I used to try to look for that feeling of home, it brings up all these old feelings of feeling like I was missing something, feeling like I wasn't whole on my own, and like I needed something outside of myself to complete me.
Mm.
And when I really find myself feeling anxious or depressed or just stuck in these harmful thought cycles, when I really truly think about it, it's one of two things happening. It's I'm disconnected from that source energy, what you would call God, or some people would call the universe or the great mystery or whatever you want to call it, source energy. Either I'm disconnected from that, or I'm really focused on what isn't working instead of what
Mm,
is, or what I'm lacking instead of what I am.
yeah.
So I really think the place that it all begins is worthiness, though, and deciding like I am worthy of feeling whole on
Mm.
my own.
Yeah, it's interesting when you have when I've had conversations with people about that and just posing that question, do you feel you're worthy, or do you, is that something that you feel that you embody? And a lot of the time people will say yes, because in their minds they're like, yeah, I am worthy, and they understand that they're worthy, yet their actions don't mirror that. And
Mm,
and that's where there's this mismatch of, okay, you understand in your mind logically, yes, you're worthy, but what you're doing and how you treat yourself and how you honor yourself doesn't reflect that. So what is beneath that? Why is it that your actions don't follow through with what you know is true? So there's a difference between knowing you're worthy and actually embodying worthiness and actually living it. You know what I mean? And having it
yeah.
manifest within your life and within your actions and within the way that you treat and respect yourself.
Absolutely. Like it's one thing to learn a lesson, but it's another thing to completely integrate it and
Yeah.
to integrate something like worthiness or gratitude or whatever it may be. We
Mm.
almost kind of have to clean house in our minds and say, okay, what kind of thoughts are constantly repeating that are going against what I now know to be true? Because even if I learn, like, okay, I'm worthy of feeling good, it is my birthright to feel good,
Mm.
right? If
Yeah.
I keep doing things that make me feel like shit, then there's some mental pattern there that's going against the new thing I've learned. So it's almost like we have to go within and like clean house.
Yeah. And I agree. And it's looking at the things that we're perceiving to influence our level of worthiness. So perhaps you've done wrong by somebody, or you've not done something to the best of your ability, or you've allowed certain relationships to take place in your life that you know weren't okay. Sometimes the way that you perceive those things that you've done in life, you kind of like, it starts to become a tally of like, oh no, that's bad, so I'm less worthy now. And then when you do something good, it's like, I'm more worthy. But it's not like, I think that's where people misconceive worthiness, like we're born that way and it doesn't matter what we do. We're already worthy. You don't have to earn worthiness.
Mm,
It's not something that you have to exchange, you know, tasks for or do things for. Which I guess when you think about it in like a religious aspect, when back in the day, like when things were perceived of like, oh, I have to do this, and this for God to love me. Um,
mm-hmm.
and that's the same thing. Like it's like, I'll be worthy of God's love when dot dot dot. And it's this conditional thing that gets ingrained into us, but maybe not just in religion, maybe just in the way that we're brought up as well. Like, when you do something right or wrong with your parents, it's that conditional. You feel like, well, if I do what's right by them, then they will love me more and they'll accept me more. Um, so kind of getting, when you say cleaning out the house, your mental house, getting rid of those ingrained stories that we continue to tell ourselves that worthiness is something that you earn.
Yeah, totally. Like a lot of the times, the beliefs that we're carrying around about ourselves and the world around us are things that we only think are true because we agreed they're true. Like literally everything that we perceive as truth is only truth to us because we agreed that it was truth.
Yeah.
So if there's this, like, for instance, with me, like I've seen my dad work like 50, 60 hour work weeks since I was a little girl. So there was something in me that said, okay, well, if I want to be successful, I have to like work my ass off and, sacrifice time with my friends and family so I can be successful.
Mm,
But really, when I think about it, that's not my truth. That's
yeah.
his truth, And just like you're saying with religion, like a lot of religions place God as like something outside of us rather than something that we're a part of. And so we see God as this like they say things like God is a jealous God and all this, and he's an angry God and all this, but I really truly don't think that there's something out there like keeping tally
Yeah.
of what we're doing, like air quotes, right or wrong. I think it's more like we're the ones keeping tally, and there's so much power
Mm,
in being able to forgive yourself. And I think a lot of that kind of comes from reframing your past stories. So,
yeah.
like, seeing the past stories that have happened, seeing the ways that you've acted in the past, and saying, okay, like, that was me then. What can I learn from that? What did I learn from that? And are those characteristics that I still carry? If I
Mm,
don't want to carry these things anymore, can I let them go?
yeah. And that's kind of that thing of what we spoke on before and what we're going to be speaking on with coming home is that level of acceptance and seeing your mistakes and your flaws as something beautiful, even if the
Mm,
things that you've done wrong, where perhaps there is a bit of remorse for some of the things that have happened in your life. There is a way that you can perceive those things as something beautiful, and it's not that the action itself, but the lesson that was learnt from that and the growth that came from that, or the resilience, or even it could totally shift the way that you handle the next situation that arises within that particular. It could be a family thing or a relationship thing or anything like that. So a lot of as you say, forgiveness is really important. And when we bury ourselves in guilt and shame on the things that we've done or the things that we have not done, we say we sit in this pool of unworthiness and unacceptance,
mm.
and then we can't really fully embody. And that's why that worthiness, and that's why when we know we're worthy but feel that we aren't, there's that mismatch. So perspective definitely changes everything, really. It changes the way you get to experience those lessons. And
It's almost like the lens that you're looking through. Like that's literally what perspective is, right? It's like the lens that you're choosing to look through. Like are you looking back at your past experiences and saying, okay, like these determine my worth? Or are
mm,
you looking back at your past experiences saying, okay, I determine my worth. What can my past teach me?
yeah, yep, that's exactly right. And that's so beautiful. And we can look at life like a teacher. People say that all the time, but our biggest lessons come from the experiences and the mistakes that we make in our lives. And had we not gone through all those things, we wouldn't know what we know. And it allows us then to be there for those who experience the same thing, and to come to someone with understanding and empathy and like a true depth of understanding where, yeah, I've been there before. How about you see it from this side? Like what did you learn? What did you learn, or what can you take away from this? That movie Collateral Beauty was one of quite a poignant movie in my life when I watched it, when um Will Smith's daughter dies at 6 years old from
Mm,
cancer, and he goes through this, all this turmoil and hatred towards God and hatred towards everything, and rightly so. We all experience things like that, but at the end of it, it said the older lady said, "Remember to acknowledge or to find the collateral beauty." So from every disaster or every horrible thing that happens in the world, there is always something to find there's always a way to find beauty. And even with everything that's going on right now in the world when it comes to COVID and politics and all of those crazy things, which we probably won't go too far into, but we can definitely agree that that's causing a stir and a big shift consciously in a lot of people, and it's helping people to sort of really think about what's important, and really have a moment of reflection as well, and just looking at, you know what what are the things that I can do from the situation, and what are the things that I can learn from the situation moving forward.
Absolutely.
Where do I want to
It's
go?
all about deciding to become like the main character in your story.
Yeah,
Like, is life happening to you or is life happening for you? Like, as
yeah.
stereotypical as that sounds, the moment that you decide that life is happening for you,
Mm,
that's the moment that all the lessons become more apparent. And yeah, I'm sure some people are listening to this thinking, well, you don't know what I've been through. And no, I don't know what you've been through. But what I do know is that part of our human experience, what I believe to be the purpose of our human experience, is to go through things that make us grow in some way. Like, no matter how deep the pain was of whatever you experienced, on some level, there is, like you're saying, some type of collateral beauty. And maybe we have to look really, really, really hard for it, but
mm,
it's in there. It is absolutely in there.
yeah. And it's interesting, I was having a conversation actually with my mum last night, and she was talking about, she's been digging deep into the things that she's wanting to work on. And then I said to her, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is going to be, you are going to have light at the end of the tunnel. And then she's like, yeah, but it's horrible. Ugh, I hate it. I hate it. And I think, the reality is that going through all of that, it isn't easy. And just because there is collateral beauty or something, a light at the end of the tunnel, doesn't mean it's not going to hurt, and doesn't mean it's not going to be difficult.
Mm,
So taking that into consideration, and perhaps seeing it from a point of view of like, okay, well, I'm already going through something that's painful. If I then resist that pain, then I'm only going to hurt more and suffer more. So what if I looked at it as, okay, this is one of those things where I just got to accept that this is going to be a little bit painful, and at the end of it there will be some good that comes out of it. Then there's some level of like feeling okay, or
mm-hmm.
things will be okay, rather than, oh, why am I going through this? Why is this happening to me? Just like what you said, life
Right.
life doesn't happen to you but for you. But as you're going through that experience, when it is hard and when it is feeling heavy and stressful, and when anxiety hits and all of that, that's the moment, that's your opportunity of asking, how is this happening for me? And it's in those really difficult times where we have to activate that, um, to actually be able to experience those difficult times with some level of acceptance.
And
Um,
it can be hard too, especially when you're actually going through it.
yeah,
Like sometimes the most you can do for yourself when you're actually experiencing something is to say like, okay, well, right now this sucks, but I know that this isn't going to last forever.
yeah,
And sometimes that's the most you can do. And sometimes when it's happening, you don't even see the lesson. Maybe it's after you go through the experience that you see the lesson. Because when you're looking backwards and you're looking at the experiences that you've already gone through, if you take a moment to really ground yourself and really accept that the past has already happened and there
mm,
is absolutely nothing in this world that can change the events of your past, when you can come to that place of acceptance, then
mm,
you can really choose your positioning. Okay, am I going to let this have power over me? Am I
yeah,
going to let this bog me down? Am I going to let this be a burden on my shoulders?
mm,
Or am I going to say, I accept you to my past, say, I love you to myself, and call that part of you home? Hey, love, if you're listening to this podcast and thinking, wow, I really wish I had that feeling of home within myself, I have something so exciting to share with you. Ari and I have created a program called Coming Home, and it's going to be a 4-week program where we teach you how to cultivate this feeling of inner peace within yourself, how to create practices that foster a sense of inner peace that you can tap into anywhere at any time. If you're ready to see your flaws as something beautiful so that you can grow from them, if you're ready to cultivate these healing practices that make you feel peaceful, authentic, and empowered, head over to oracleaura.com/coming home to check out the details. We are taking registrations for this program until October 30th, 2020. So make sure you pop over to oracleaura.com/coming home, and we'll see you on the inside.
That whole experience of what you just said is, you go through something, you have that reflection moment, you decide how you want to perceive that, and if you go ahead and perceive it with that positive perspective of how is this, good for me, all of that, the next time something happens is another opportunity for you to implement that. And maybe in that next opportunity or that next moment of strife, you don't fully follow through in the way that you would like to, but you're just a little bit more resilient and you're just a little bit more positive or a little bit more understanding and compassionate of what's actually happening for you. And then you take that moment again to then reflect on that situation, and then the next thing comes up, and it's almost like we're in this, like we're practicing we're practicing
Yeah.
how to be compassionate and how to embrace worthiness and embrace our flaws and accept who we are, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time, you know, having having that understanding of, like, we're all doing life and we're all winging it, and it's up to us to sort of pick up the lessons along the way and implement them along the way. But we can't expect ourselves to, once we've learnt something, straight away be in there and be scholars at that particular thing. If you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it really does take time and practice to implement all of the things that you learn in this journey of growth. And I guess that's where compassion comes in and understanding comes in, of the time it takes. Like, we have enough time to really move through these, and we don't need to rush through the feelings that we're feeling and the lessons that we're learning. Like, you can take time with that. And that's where we have the opportunity as well to look back and reflect without judgment, um, rather than condemnation of what
Yeah.
yeah.
It, I got a card recently in one of my card readings where the description said to look at the events of your past with through eyes of curiosity rather than judgment. And I loved that because it's like it's stepping into that worthiness and giving yourself permission to say, okay, why was I acting that way? Or
Yeah.
why did that happen?
Mhm.
And yeah, really just rather than like, oh, I was acting that way and that's bad.
Yeah.
But something I've also literally just become aware of like yesterday was so a lot of the times when we're going through a hard time, when we're going through something that's difficult, we can find ourselves saying like, why is this happening to me? I don't want to feel this way. I want to feel good. And especially in this self-improvement space, it almost seems there can be this pressure to feel good all the time,
Yeah.
but that's just not human.
Mhm.
It's not real. And if anybody is telling you that they feel good 100% of the time, they are lying.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but nobody feels good all the time. And if they do, then maybe like I don't know. I don't know, but I honestly believe even if it's just for a brief moment, we are faced with challenges and we can find peace in those challenges, but nobody's life is all happy go lucky, hunky dory all the time.
Yeah.
But
That's
but
Interesting you say that, yeah. Keep going.
But feeling a sense of surrender
Mm,
is vital
mm,
to our inner peace and remaining in that space of feeling worthy and feeling at home within ourselves. Like
yeah.
for the last, I don't know, a few days, I found myself feeling this kind of just general sense of anxiety, and I wasn't sure what it was. And it was just nagging in the back of my mind. And I listened to another podcast actually where this woman was talking about surrender. And I thought, you know what? Oh, it wasn't just this woman, it was Oprah.
Mm.
Oprah was talking about surrender. And she was saying how when something comes up and a challenge, she's faced with a challenge, she says, "Thank you."
Mm,
And we often hear gratitude spoken about in the spiritual community. And it's almost kind of become this like, oh, psh, don't talk about gratitude again kind of thing. But in all honesty, saying thank you to that feeling, knowing that it was going to teach me something,
mm,
brought the lesson to the surface almost immediately. And I realized that I was gripping onto the outcomes
yeah,
of goals, and rather than just saying like, universe, I trust you. And then the second I said thank you, that rose to the surface and I could say, all right, universe, I trust you.
yeah,
And I feel better.
yeah. That's really, really powerful because you're just it's allowing you it's inviting that feeling into your space, but allowing
Yeah.
it to move through you rather than resisting it, like it's knocking on your door and you're like, "Nope, I don't wanna deal with you. No, I don't this is not what I wanna feel." But the quicker you let that in and let it out, the quicker you get to experience the feeling itself, but also the lesson that comes from it. And it's funny that you say what you said before, how anybody who is telling you that they're all good all the time are lying, because I was something that I've learned recently within myself is that I have had a tendency in the past to, when those feelings did arise, I would look at them and I would be like, okay, yep, there you are. But I wouldn't allow myself that time to really experience it. And so
Mm.
the feeling would come in, but it would kind of get stuck and it would stay there because once I'd allowed myself to feel a little tiny bit of it, but not fully feel it, I would kind of cut it off halfway through halfway through the experience and just be like, okay, that's enough now, and let's be positive. And but in doing that, which is like that, personal development, be happy all the time attitude that floats around at times. In doing that, I wasn't fully allowing myself to experience that feeling and fully learn the lesson from that feeling. So it was almost like a suppression. And how that showed up in my life was not me stressing out emotionally, but it showed up in my body. And
Mm, mhm.
I started to experience high levels of fatigue, and I started to experience tummy problems and bloating issues and things like that. And I've went to the doctors, all my bloods are fine, there's nothing wrong with you. And then I thought deeply about it, and I'm just like, maybe this is an emotional thing. Maybe this is the fact that I haven't truly allowed myself to experience all these feelings that have come knocking at my door and that just want to be heard and just want to be experienced, and then they go in the time that they need to go. And realizing that, I was like, damn, like what am I doing? And this is why things are showing up in my body physically, is because of these limitations I'm putting on myself to experience what I need to experience. And I get the half lesson, but not the full lesson, because I'm not fully surrendering, as you say, to what I'm meant to learn from it.
Yes.
Um, which was really interesting. And I guess the other thing too, when you're looking at acceptance, is acceptance of, when that emotion hits, acceptance of the process it needs to go through to be felt and released.
Yes. And whenever we are able to shine a light of gratitude on that and say, thank you to source, we
Mm,
can kind of reconnect with those good feelings that we so desperately want to feel, right? When we're feeling upset or we're feeling stressed or we're feeling worried or doubtful or whatever it is. Whenever we say the words thank you,
yeah.
it's like this immediate little like glimmer.
Yeah.
And it's like the light that shines on the lesson. And lately I've really been reflecting on the words light work and shadow work, because it seems there's so many people coming up in the spiritual community who are almost poking fun at people who say love and light.
Mm,
And we can't have we can't have one without the other. If
yeah.
someone is a light worker or someone is a shadow worker and they're doing their job to the fullest, then essentially they're doing the same exact thing. They're just calling it something different.
Yeah.
Because you can't see what's in the shadows, or you can't even have a shadow without light,
Mm.
And I don't know. I'm rambling. But
It's
but
the duality of, like, it's just how life functions. There is always
yes.
the good and bad, happy, sad, light and dark. And
Yes.
without those, like you said, like you're sort of trying to say there, like without those dark moments, we wouldn't be shown the light at the end, just like that little glimpse of gratitude. And it doesn't actually look like light isn't always going to be this super enthusiastic, like ecstatic feeling of, elation. It doesn't work that way. It could just be, like you say, this little glimmer of
Mhm.
peace, and this little feeling of just, okay, acceptance, and feeling at peace, feeling at
Yes.
in a moment where things are not perfect or not feeling nice. It's feeling okay and feeling at peace that, okay, this is all okay. Thank you for the lesson. That's light, as well as the fun, exciting, ecstatic moments. And
Totally.
and the same too is true for darkness. It could just be that little emotion that pops in, and you don't feel comfortable feeling it. That can be a bit of darkness, but then it can also be something really big happening in your life too. It doesn't matter how big or small the experience is, it's going to affect you in a certain way. And if it is in a more positive way or a more negative way, that is what it is. And it doesn't make any experience more or less, um, what can I say? Each experience is valid, and each feeling that comes from that experience is valid also, and the time it takes to move through that is valid. There is,
Yes.
I think, people do too when they are going through good or bad experiences is they put expectations on the time frame. Generally, you want to make those good moments last forever, and then you want to quickly go through those difficult times. But sometimes those amazing moments are just a glimpse, are just one day or one moment. And sometimes those difficult times last for weeks and months on end. And we don't really, eh, like, how we perceive that can determine the pace of those experiences. But at the end of the day, it'll take as long as it needs to take.
A lot of the time, too, whenever we're experiencing those prolonged periods of darkness, it's because we're doing what you were saying before. We're denying ourselves
Mm.
to feel the feeling completely. We're denying ourselves the nature of being human and the nature of being a part of nature, and that everything has seasons,
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. We can't I think there's this misconception that self improvement means being happy all the time. And being happy and being peaceful are not the same thing.
Mm.
Being peaceful it's like a neutral. Peace and joy are not the same. Yes, you absolutely 1000% deserve to feel joyful. You deserve to feel abundant and good, but nobody feels that way all the time. But what you can learn to find is that peace, that neutral in the middle where you can look at the thoughts and you can look at the feelings and say, these thoughts and these feelings are not who I am. I am what's experiencing those thoughts and those feelings. And knowing that you are in that place of stillness, that's peace.
I would define it in pretty much the same way. It's just, it doesn't have these extreme levels. There's no super high or super low, or it's just that healthy medium in between where you can just feel okay and good with life and the way things are going. And probably a huge part of that inner peace is the perception aspect, like what we've spoken on already, is how we choose to see the world. And maybe that's an opportunity for, I look at it as an opportunity when I don't feel at peace, is to address the lens that I'm looking through. Um, am I sort of, is the lens being tainted by certain experiences or certain something that someone said or whatever? But it's, yeah, pretty much finding that place of just contentment. It feels okay regardless of what the craziness that goes on around. Um, that's what I would say it is. And it's kind of hard to, I guess it's hard to put in words, but when you've actually experienced it yourself, you're like, oh, that's what it is. And
Mm,
and and then you try, and then and then you try and make that happen more often, but it's not, also not something that you can force.
no, definitely not.
So
To me, it's like the layers of an onion. It's like at our very, 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 very core,
yeah,
at the very center, our most authentic, pure self, that is peace.
yeah,
And then over time, it's like all these layers get put on top.
yeah,
All these stories of why we're unworthy,
mm,
all of these experiences that make us feel unworthy, all of these expectations of others or from others that we haven't met that suddenly become a story of why we're not worthy.
mm,
And they just kind of all pile on top. So to me, part of coming home is like consciously peeling back those layers and saying, okay, it's, I don't really want to wear this anymore.
yeah.
I'm done carrying this because it's not serving me.
Yeah, and I guess that's where that's yeah, that I agree with that completely, and it also gives you a sense of freedom as well, where you can, when you do connect into that most authentic self and peel back all those layers, that freedom also brings a sense of peace. Um, the freedom to be who you want to be, and the freedom of honoring what feels right for you and what your heart and soul is asking for. So
Mm.
that peace doesn't come just from like sitting and meditating. It that does help, but it comes from action as well. Taking action in honoring that authentic self that you mentioned before, and doing the things that align with who you are, and even just inquiring, like you said earlier, getting curious, and making it your, I guess your little like investigation of who am I, and who is this person beneath this layer, and what does she really love? What does she really need? What is her purpose here? And how can I put things in place, like start to do things more that align with that? And that feels good, and it feels free, and it feels peaceful in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I agree with that one.
So, what are some of those things that you like to do that make you feel aligned with your authentic self?
Hmm. I'd say one of the biggest things, I guess, external to connecting to source, and having those moments in my own little circle, is um, connecting with other people, not just in terms of like friendships and relationships, but also just hearing people's stories and understanding and getting curious about how they find and navigate their authentic selves. I love conversations like these, like the ones we're having now. That helps me feel like I'm growing. I guess that's another thing to add to that that helps me feel authentic is knowing that I am evolving and remembering the things that I was put here to do.
Mm.
Mm, and then just, I guess, just allowing and giving myself permission to enjoy the pleasures of life. Um,
Yeah, I see you post a lot of pictures and stories of you spending time in nature and like near the ocean.
and even just, when you were talking about worthiness and acceptance,
Mhm.
when sometimes things come into your life or experiences, opportunities come into your life, and if you don't feel that level of worthiness and acceptance, you can't fully enjoy the pleasures of life.
Mm.
So, like, um, when you meet a new friend, for example, if you don't feel worthy, then there'll be things that sort of stop you from fully experiencing the beauty of that connection. So yeah, I guess it's kind of like, I guess tapping into your authentic self is like a bit of a journey, and it's not just one thing that's going to help you do that. It's like all these little contributions that you make towards your puzzle of you, um, that contribute to the feeling of fullness of the external experience, like what happens outside of you, um,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, enjoying the pleasures of life, but also, as you said, I think that was a really important thing too, is to having gratitude towards the lessons. And I have started to really um, genuinely feel that, genuinely feel a sense of like gratitude towards the things that are teaching me, and the pain, the peeling back of those layers to the authentic self is not always a fun journey, and it can be a little bit painful. But
Mhm.
that gratitude throughout that process, I've been able to tap into that, probably not as consistently as I would like to, but I'm learning to practice that and implement that, and that feels authentic.
Yeah. Something you just said really stuck out to me, and I want to touch on that, is taking off those layers can be painful.
Yeah,
And a lot of times we take those past experiences that we've gone through, that those layers that we've been carrying around, and we make them a part of our identity. And
yeah,
the ego says, this is who I am now.
yeah,
But whenever we're able to peel those layers back and say, this is not who I am, then we reclaim our inner peace. We reclaim a part of who we truly are
yeah,
and who our soul is intended to be here on this planet.
yeah,
Even though it's painful to like peel off this layer that's been stuck to you for so long, what's underneath it is beautiful
yeah,
and is just that authentic peace.
yeah. And I'd probably say, I'm going to say in a practical sense, when we say layers, I guess I'll give an example to that, because um, you might not know what that means, anyone who's listening.
Mm.
But so, for example, I used to be like, I made it my identity and my role to be the person that um, did certain things within the home. And I made sure I got this done, got this done, and got this done. And that was my role, and that was my job. And I felt good doing that. And then when I almost became like the fixer. So when things were not quite right or not quite wrong or needed to be put back in line, that was my role. But then when that was taken away or removed, when that layer was peeled back, I felt this like sense of, I felt lost. And I felt, so when we say peeling back the layers can be painful, it can feel confusing, and it can feel like, like you've lost something that's dear to you, and you can feel like you're in this like moment of confusion or uncertainty of like, oh well, what's next, like what do I hold on to next? And when we come to that level, when I then came to that level of acceptance of like, my worthiness isn't dependent on how I help people and what I do. My worthiness is already, it's present at all times. um, I was then able to go, okay, I have an attachment to that identity. I have that attachment to being the fixer. and who I am is not tied into that. So what I can do is say thank you for that experience, for what you've taught me, but it's no longer serving me anymore, because each time that I try to fix somebody else's problems, I'm betraying or not allowing space for me to address something within myself. So,
Yes. And now you've positioned yourself to be open to people coming to you
yes.
to heal themselves, which ultimately is what a healer is. I see that a lot. And
Mm,
I honestly have experienced that myself. Like this kind of, it's called, the term for it is savior complex. Whenever we see other people suffering and we think, oh, I can save them. And we
mm,
see this a lot in women specifically, thinking that they can fix or change a man, which I think most of us have probably been there at some point or another. Like, oh, I can fix him. Like, no, honey, you can't fix him. But I wish I could tell my younger self that. But, but it's almost like this layer that we put on of like the fixer,
mm,
when really, when we peel that back, then we can say, okay, well, I was trying to do that because there's all this stuff within me that needs to be healed. And more times than not, when we shine a light on those things and we start to heal those things, not with the intention of becoming perfect, but with the intention of coming home and feeling like our authentic, whole, worthy selves,
yep.
then we start to see people coming to us
Yeah.
without us having to say, hey, let me help you.
Yeah.
We can just wait and position ourselves so that people start coming to us. And really, all we're doing is helping them shine the light within that we learned how to shine within so they can heal themselves.
Yeah, and it's that empowerment thing, eh? Like it's not about trying to, in that state of being the fixer, you're trying to tell people what to do. You're trying to go, no,
Mm,
you're not doing that, but you just need to go this way, because if you go there, you're going to get hurt, and this bad thing's going to happen, and da 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 da. And it's not coming from a place of trust at all. It's coming from a place of fear. And then also come from a place of dependency as well, like codependency. Like, I need to make sure that you go on the right path, because if you don't go on the right path, then I'm not going to feel good about myself. That you don't know, but subconsciously that story is playing. But as you say, when you do let go and you do just allow them to come to you, and then just give tools of empowerment, not this is what you need to do, but you already have it within you to understand what you need to do. It's there already. Ask yourself, what do I need? And giving them the courage and the confidence to trust them and to tap into them is what's true empowerment and true, I guess, if you want to call it fixing, that would be a better way to do it, is by,
I would call it like fixing versus healing.
yeah, yeah. And fixing is not, it has a backlash effect.
Mm.
Um, it doesn't
You can't fix people.
exactly.
Like, it's honestly just an illusion. Like,
Yeah.
it is. Like, they might be putting on a happy face in front of you to make you think, like, oh, you fixed me or whatever. But
Mm,
the only person who can really, air quotes, fix somebody is themselves. So, like, the role of a healer is to shine the light on the path to teach someone how to heal themselves.
yep. Yep.
Yeah,
And that's one of the most beautiful gifts that you can give someone, is to just
absolutely.
allow them to see what they already possess within them. And
Yes.
to do that, and to, have that empowerment within themselves to heal themselves, it starts with coming home.
Mm. And I think we'll end on that note.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Nope.
Cool beans. Well, that was a nice little episode. It felt like we're just sitting in a coffee shop chatting.
Pretty much, which I love. I love that. Those little conversations that just sort of flow and go wherever they need to go.
Yes. Thank you so much for tuning in today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Oracle Aura. If you enjoyed it, please take a screenshot and post it to your Instagram story. Be sure to tag me at Oracle Jada or the podcast at Oracle Aura Podcast, and we will connect on Instagram. Have a great day, guys. Namaste.